Hi, welcome to my channel Geography with Dr.Narendranath. Now I explain geosynclines. If you are new in my channel, must will click bell icon and subscribe button. Geosyncline may be defined as a thick, rapidly accumulating body of sediments formed with a long, narrow and subsiding belt of the sea, which is usually parallel to plate margin. According to Oxford Dictionary of Geography, and we may say that geosyncline is a very large linear depression of the downwarping of the earth crust and field, and with the deep layer of sediments derived from the lead masses on edge sides and deposited on the floor of the depression of approximately the same rate as slowly and continuous subsidence during the long periods of the geological time. And evaluation of the concept of geosyncline. First, what is the evaluation of geosyncline is very important for UG Fiji students, and also there are some English medium students in the school. The concept of geosyncline came into existence in 1859 based upon his research on the stratigraphy and structure of the northern Appalachian. James Hall discovered that the folded Paleozoic sediments and belong of the mountain range and the saltwater type marine origin having the thickness of 12 km. James Hall also found that the thickness was 10 to 20 times greater in comparison to the unfolded rock strata and corresponding edge found in the interior lowlands towards the west. And the deposit of the massive sequence of shale and sandstone and limestone suggests that the underlying floor, all and rock subsidence and by the smaller amount. And the mountain form was presided by fragments and the fluids of down, warping down, and which of the process of sediments accumulation maintained a balance with the subsidence of the crust dana. 1873. And there are the two classes are found side by side and separated by the Geosyncline in the middle, and geosynclines are now considered to be the formed continental margin like those forming in the Atlantic Ocean, and geosyncline separation in the invites of defined equivalents of ocean basin of the smaller margin, and such as the marginal basin of the western part of the Pacific, the Sea of Japan and Sea Otakhaska, and that the history some very important three category according to their hymn. There are the very important. First of all, the geosyncline are exceptionally the long and narrow stretch, such as the geosynclines are situated either within a contained or long lateral area. They are called the mono since they pass through only one cycle of sedimentation and mountain building. An example is the Appalachian geosyncline, which was folded from the Ordovician to the permanent periods. And next very important is that the polygeosynclines are the broader than monogeosynclines. These geosynclines had a longer periods of extent than the monogeosynclines. They pass through more than one phase of the orogenesis. The Rockies Mountain and Ural geosyncline and example of polygeosyncline, such the mountain range exhibit the complex and parallel anticline and called the geanticlines, and the mesogeosyncline are surrounded by continents on all sides. They have greater depth and long and complex geological history. And EHAC defined the geosyncline as deep water region of considerable length but relatively narrow in width. And Haag drew geosynclines map of the world to provide that the present day fold mountain originated from the massive geosynclines of the past, and huge postulated 5 major land masses belong to the Mesozoic era, namely North Atlantic mass and Sino-Siberian mass and Africa, Brazil mass, Australia, India, Madagascar mass and Pacific mass. He identified 4 geosynclines located between these ridge masses, and Roorkee's geosynclines and Ural geosynclines and Tethys geosyncline and Circum-Pacific geosyncline. According to Hug, the transgressional and the regressional phase of seas have direct impact of the lateral margin of the geosyncline. The basically finer sediments are deposited centrally in the geosyncline, whereas the coarser sediments and deposit in the marginal areas, and where deep of the water of the shallow, all the geosyncline do not have the same cycle of sedimentation, subsidence and comprehension and folding of the sediments, and whose theory is criticized because of its confused idea. The paleo geographical map by Hawk, so the land area disproportionately and the larger, and then oceanic area or geosynclines and criteria raise question about the existence of such as the huge landmass after the Mesozoic era. And Hug idea of deep geosyncline is also not acceptable because of the evidence of marine fossil found in the fold mountain and marine organism from whose the fossil and derived are found only the shallow water. According to J.W. Even the form of the shape and the geosyncline change, and according to the change which ours in the environment. And according to Evans, geosynclines may be placed between the two land masses such as the Tethys Sea and between the Laurasia and Gondwana, and geosynclines may be front a mountain of the plateau. An example after the origin of Himalaya, where was the long trench, and from the Himalaya which was later filled and with the sediments and leading the formation of the heat and the endogenetic plains, and the geosynclines are found along the continental margin. Geosynclines may be exist from the river mouth, and according to Arthur Holmes, basically their earth movements rather than the sedimentation cause sediments and the geosyncline through a long and gradual process and the deposit sediments up to 12,160 meters. Appalachian geosyncline could be feasible during the period 300 years, and the Holmes identify 4 types. The geosyncline formed by magmatic migration. The Holmes consider earth crust to be the made of the 3-layer external layer of the granodiorite and the 10 to 12 kilometer thickness, intermediate amphibites and the 10, 20 to 25 thickness, and intermediate amphibolite 20 to 25 thickness, and eclogite and some periodite, that margin of magma from the intermediate layers to the surrounding area can cause sediments of the upper layer leading to the formation of the geosynclines. So very important, the next, and the geosynclines formed by metamorphosis. Metamorphosis was lowermost rocks layer of the metamorphosis due to compression caused by convergence of the convective currents, and thus the density of the rocks increasing resulting, and the geosynclines formation. Holmes believed that the Carbonian Sea and the western part of Mediterranean Sea and the Banda Sea were formed by this process, and geosynclines formed by comprehension subsidence may occur in the earth and crust due to compression, such as the compressional activities occurs because of converging connectivities currents. An example are the Persian Gulf and endogenetic thought. And geosynclines form due to thinner sealic layer, basically when the column of the rising convergent currents and divergence after the reaching the bottom layer the cast, and 2 possibilities arise in the seal and retrace apart the winning the tensile force, and the cause of the sealic layer and the formation of the geosynclines, and continental mass may be broken apart from the geosyncline. Example are found in the form Ural geosynclines, and very important, there are the different structure of the mountain range. The intercontinental geosynclines are located at 2 land masses, and circumcontinental geosyncline are located at the border of the continents, and oceanic geosynclines are formed along lateral area of the ocean. Such the geosynclines are also called special type of the geosyncline or unique geosynclines. Geosyncline origin theory of Kover is very important. The Kover theory, the German geologist Kover in his one book Der Wörter Iride was established a detailed and the systematic relationship between geosynclines and ridge masses of continental plate and the formation of the fault mountain. Kober geosyncline theory is based on the construction process and produced as a result of cooling of the earth, and Kober view that force of contraction of the earth lead to horizontal movements of foreland, and which is turned there are the sediment into massive mountain also. And so definitely there are the, according to Kover, the mountain most of the presents occupied the geosyncline side of the early periods. The geosyncline or mobile zones water have been identified orogeny by the Kover. The ridge masses were surrounding the geosyncline are termed and the Cratogen, and such the Cratogen includes the Canadian Shield, the Baltic Shield, the Siberian Shield, and the peninsular India, the Chinese Massif, and the Brazilian Mass, and the African Shield, and the Australian and Antarctica ridge blocks. And Kover considered the Pacific Ocean to have been formed when the Mid Pacific geosyncline separate and the North and South Pacific for land, and which later the field of the water and sank. And he identified the morphometric units based on the surface and features of the earth during the Mesozoic era. After together the some part of the belonging the Indian Atlantic Ocean and India Australian landmass and Eurasian landmass and North Pacific continents and Southern Pacific continents and South America and Antarctica continents. And so there are the Kover was demarcated 6 major mountain building periods and 3 very little known as the mountain building periods. Okay, during the Precambrian periods, the followed by the major period during the Paleozoic era. There are the very interesting these 6, and the large the orogenesis called alpine orogeny was completed in the tertiary epoch, and the Kover option that the whole process of the mountain building passes and through 3 stages closely interlinked with one another. So very interesting. There are the lithogenesis. This stage is characterized by the creation basically sediments and subsidence of the geosynclines, and geosynclines are formed due to contraction caused by the cooling and process of the earth, the foreland of cratogens which border geosynclines and succumbed to the force of denudation. As a result of there was constant wearing away rock and boulders from foreland and deposition of the eroded materials on the beds geosynclines. This led to subsidence geosyncline, and in process sediments deposition to the resulting subsidence led to the further sediments. So there are the next another very important, the orogenesis. Orogenesis basically in this stage of geosyncline sediments are sequenced and folded into the mountain range, and there is a convergence of the forelands and towards each other due to the force on the contraction bar, the enormous compressive force produced by these moving forelands and produce contraction and squeezing and folding sediments and deposit on the geosyncline bed. The parallel mountain ranges found on the both sides of the geosyncline have been termed by Kover as the Rentketten, and meaning the marginal ranges, and Kover view the folding geosyncline sediments to be depends upon the intensity of the compressive force, and compressive force of normal and moderate intensity produce marginal range on the 2 sides of the geosynclines, leaving the middle part of unaffected, and the unfold the middle part of term the medium mass. The Kover triad they explain from the structure fold mountain in the context of median masses, and the sedimentary deposit overall the Tethys geosyncline had undergone massive compression due to the converging movements of the European land masses and the African forelands, and there the formation of the alpine mountain. Example of the Pyrenees and the Baltic and the Cordillera prevents the region of the Alps provide different zones, and also there are the further examples of the such median masses are from the Hungarian median mass located between the Carpathian and Dinaric Alps, two sides of the Mediterranean Sea. It is the Mediterranean mass placed between the Pyrenees and Provenance and range on the north and Atlas mountain, and there are the eastern extension on the south. The example of median masses are the Anatolian plateau located between the Pontic and Taurus, and the Iran plateau located between the Zagros and Elbrus, and the Cuvier argues that the Asiatic alpine fold mountain can be divided into two major categories based on the orientation fold and range formed by the northward compression such as Pontic and Tranche. These are etc. There are the and Zagros, Elbrus, and the Iran, and the Oman range, the Himalayan. The median mass is found various forms and plateau like the Tibetan plateau between the Kunlun and Himalayan basin range, and the border by the Westridge range in the Syria, Nevada, USA. The plain like the Himalayan mountain plain border and the Carpathian and the Dinaric Alps and such as the Caribbean Sea. And Glyptosis genesis, this phase of mountain building is characterized by a gradual agents of the mountain range and the ongoing denudation process by the natural agents. Cuvier's geosyncline theory provided a satisfactory explanation for a few aspects of the mountain building. The theory, however, suffered from a shortcoming, and the first, the force of contraction produced by the cooling to the earth and is not adequate for the formation of massive mountains like the Himalayan and the Alps. Secondary, Swiss argues that the sides on the geosyncline moves while the other sides remain static, and Swiss term the moving and backland and the stretchable sides of the far lands. So he opined that the Himalayas were formed by the southward movement of Angarland, the Gondwana do not move. This observation is now related the light and plate tectonic theory. Evidence of the paleomagnetism and seafloor spreading over that both the four lands move towards each other. Thirdly, Cuvier theory has been successfully in explaining that the mountain having and the assets and the extension, but those having the north-south alignment can hardly be explained on the basis of his history. So definitely the modern concept of geosyncline is very important. What is the modern concept? Basically idea about geosyncline underwent the significant change with the introduction of plate tectonic theory. A continental margin plate along the margin known as the subduction, collation and transformation fault motion is called active margin, while the continental margin which is shaped away from the spreading axis in the term passive. For example, on the coast, the North America passive continental margin keeps depositing sediments with the gradually movements of the continental away for the spreading axis. The lithosphere become cooler and dense, and the accumulation accommodate an increasing deeper ocean floor of the passive margin as the sediment continue to get deposited on the ocean floor. Such a thick and column sediments along the border of the passive margin is called geosyncline. Very important. And the study conducted during the second phase, the 20th century, several that the geosyncline is thick and rapidly accumulating body which lies parallel to the continents. So the age of old idea of geosyncline or the Cretaceous theory thought but by the mountain contributing sediments needs to the abundant. So there are the very important geosyncline. Their passive continental margin can be divided into two types: the myogeosyncline or the shallow water sediments of marine and origin which constitute the continental shelf, and as the edge of deep sea, and sediments deposited at the foot of continental slope and lying on the oceanic crust. Both types of the geosyncline are made by sediments accumulated by the slow subsidence of the lithosphere. So definitely in the Gulf of Mexico and myogeosynclines sediments attains and the thickness of 20 km and extension freezing of the continental shelf, and huge geosyncline sediment are formed in the oceanic crust, just have the oceanic volcano. So definitely the uncertain and trapped accumulation of the sediments in the geocline for about 200 million years has been possible due to sinking the crust and result sediments loading. The geosyncline are area their great economic importance due to the availability of mineral well. So there are the very interesting in the geosyncline. You will watching my another video, and also if you are new, you will click bell icon, and also don't forget subscribe and like. Thank you to all.